So State Senator Russell Pierce in Arizona puts out this law. The governor signs it. And he says there's a massive effort underway in our state, in Arizona, to register illegal aliens to vote. Oh, my God. And there's this general hysteria about brown people. Now, there's a whole bunch of organizations around the United States whose influence has helped to shape and bring about things like this bill in Arizona that we've been talking about all week, it seems. And, for example, the Federation for American Immigration Reform, FAIR, an organization called Numbers USA, an organization called the Center for Immigration Studies, a funding organization, US Inc., that gets money from Richard Mellon Scaife and other foundations and passes it off to these anti-immigrant groups, the Social Contract Press, which publishes right-wing hate literature, Californians for Population Stabilization, the American Immigration Control Foundation, the Population Environment Balance Group, California Coalition for Immigration Reform, and the American Patrol Voice of Citizens together. What do these groups have in common? The story may shock you. Heidi, Byrick? Byrick is with us. Heidi?
Hey, let's be here.
Yeah, Dr. Heidi Byrick is with us. She's the Director of Research at the Southern Poverty Law Center, an expert on academic racism, nativist extremism, and the white supremacist fringe of the neo-Confederate movement, splcenter.org. And Heidi, I learned about you from watching the YouTube that you put together, or somebody put together that features you, that the video that starts out with the question, what if all of the anti-immigration and hate fringe groups, or many of them, all tie back to one guy? And I was, back in the 70s when Louise and I were married, we honeymooned in Petoskey, Michigan.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I mean, my mother was born in Charlevoix. I grew up in Grand Rapids and Lansing and Detroit, and Petoskey's a really cool town for a honeymoon, and especially if you don't have a lot of money. We stayed at the Holiday Inn there, and I was shocked to discover that is like the epicenter of this stuff. Tell me, what all these organizations that I just listed, what do they have in common?
All the organizations you listed were either funded or founded by one man who lives in Petoskey, Michigan, named John Tanton. It's kind of a little-known fact about the modern anti-immigration movement, but there really is a puppeteer, a guy behind the scenes who has orchestrated the rise of all of these organizations, and you can't. It's like you can't find a serious anti-immigration organization that doesn't have some direct tie to John Tanton. And the most important thing about John Tanton is this guy is a serious racist. He's a guy that believes that if there's not a European-American majority in this country, that our country will fall apart. He's been on sort of a personal mission against brown-skinned people for literally decades. And that aspect of his belief system is not widely known, nor is his influence on all these organizations like you listed.
Yeah, it's absolutely not widely known, and it's not. It's frankly shocking, particularly when you look at John Tanton's background. That he started out with the Sierra Club.
Yeah, he did. He started out from the left. And this is a journey that quite a few people actually in the organizations he's connected to came from. Is what they did is they were in the Sierra Club. They were very concerned about population concerns. It was a popular issue in the 70s, with the population bomb, Ehrlich's book, and so on. And over time, Tanton began to see that the problem with population growth was brown people breeding too much. And that's this idea that immigrants are coming here, they're going to breed so much that we're going to be driven out of all the wild spaces in America, is what eventually made him start the Federation for American Immigration Reform, which is the biggest and most powerful of these organizations, and of course the group behind the Arizona law. And its focus is entirely on, trying to reduce immigration down to about a couple 100,000 folks a year, and it targets Latinos specifically.
Isn't there actually, as is usually the case in pretty much everything, there is a small kernel of reality in this? I mean, John Tanton's original concern that we're overpopulating the planet, there's 6 billion of us on this planet. Some pretty good science indicates that it's been at least 15 years since we surpassed the carrying capacity of the planet for human flesh. that's a reality and a problem. But to identify one racial group and say that they have a proclivity to do this or whatever. I mean, this reminds me of back in the late 19th century in the United States. There were tracts and newspaper articles openly written and books published about the crime gene associated with Irish immigrants. And then this was in the 1870s, 1880s, and then in the 1890s and the early 20th century, there were newspaper articles and tracts published about the crime gene associated with the Italian immigrants. And really, what it was a problem of poverty. It wasn't a problem of genetics. It was because the immigrant populations. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio made a movie about it. The Gangs of New York, and Take that thought and turn it into something, if you would.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say that these organizations like the Federation for American Immigration Reform and Tanton are making exactly the mistake that you're pointing out that's been done with every immigrant population that's come here, right? Whether it was the Irish in the late 1800s, the Italians a little bit later, every single group that comes in here seems to face this nativist backlash where people point at them and they say they're dumber and they're more criminal. And in the case now of Tanton with Latino Catholics, same thing the Klan said in the 1920s. They're breeding like crazy. This is this racist reaction. We've seen it over and over and over in our history, and it's just always been wrong. I mean, all those immigration populations have assimilated, become successful. I mean, there's nothing about our track record in immigration that should make people fear so much that people are coming to this country.
Right.
It's actually been quite an amazingly successful thing, and those are the fears that these people are stoking. Right? They're stoking racial fears about being assaulted, beaten, your society going, to hell in a handbasket.
Right.
And it's just never been true, right? It's always been false.
Right. We're talking with Dr. Heidi Beirich. She is the Director of Research at the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, SPLcenter.org is the website. One of the just great organizations in the United States has been fighting this good fight for a long, long time. And we've had a number of people from SPLC on the program over the years. In fact, I used to donate to SPLC back in the late 70s is when I first became familiar with the organization, as I recall. We're talking about John Tanton and his creation of all of these different groups. Talk about the Social Contract Press for a moment, Heidi.
Sure. We list the Social Contract Press as a hate group. This is a publication that has put out some really nasty materials over the years. At one point, they had an issue that focused on Europhobia and the idea that, basically that white people are under attack by non-whites in this country, and it talked about dysfunctional third world cultures coming to the United States.
This is kind of the Pat Buchanan talking point.
It is. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that Pat Buchanan is basically making these exact same arguments. I'm always sort of fascinated how he gets away with being on MSNBC or wherever else he shows up, because Buchanan's saying exactly the same thing.
He's essentially said it on this program.
Yeah.
Our Anglo-Saxon ancestry, and he's Catholic.
Yes. There's an irony there.
Yes.
But that is the argument, right? We need to be a white country, and these people are not fit to live here. They're going to destroy us.
Yeah, and not just a white country. I mean, they're echoing the anti-Catholic, anti-Semitic, anti-any other race things that were actually institutionalized into law in some cases in the first century of this country's existence.
There is no doubt, Tom. That's exactly right.
Heidi Beirich, who is Dr. Heidi Beirich, the Director of Research at the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLcenter.org.